University's Mid-Year Information Series. Tonight, we'll discuss the benefits of studying business at VU under our revolutionary new first-year model. And we'll answer any questions you might have in relation to that and to mid-year enrolment. I'm Dr. John Weldon, Head of Curriculum in our first-year college, and with me live from VU's TV studio tonight are Alan McWilliams. Alan has been teaching in the College of Business at VU for over 20 years and has been intimately involved with the development of our first-year model since the very beginning. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks, Jim.
And also with me tonight, we have Alice Groudon. Alice is in the second year of a double degree. She's studying a Bachelor of Law and a Bachelor of Commerce Applied Finance. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you.
I might start with a question to you, Alan. What is it about the first-year model that makes it so revolutionary?
There's a number of aspects to the first-year model that could be called revolutionary. One of the things I think most profoundly different from the old model of teaching first-year undergraduate at Victoria University and other Australian universities is the idea that we have one block at a time, one unit at a time. So instead of students having to juggle 4 units of study in a 12-week semester, 1 unit for 4 weeks, that's a unit completed, next 4 weeks another unit, and so on. So there's an opportunity there to focus, to get a real deep understanding of a unit of study without the distraction of other units and other assignments. So it's the level of focus, I think, is one of the most revolutionary aspects of it.
And all assessment and all feedback is given within each 4-week block, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the great things for any student who's gone through a traditional model is we don't have exams. So the exam is gone, all assessment is undertaken within that 4-week block. Actually, more than just that, though. We've designed our units of study so that assessment is actually taking place in what we would call our class sessions. So instead of saying, here's an assignment, take it home and do it later and come back when you've done and find your own way through that assignment, we're actually sitting down with students in the classroom, talking to them about the assessment task, giving them advice, answering their questions, and helping them work on that task in real time. So not only are students free of exams, but they've got that live support as they're working through their assessment task. I think the feedback we get from our students is they get a much deeper appreciation of the topic and the material they're working on than if they're just left on their own to find their way through the assessment.
Thanks, Alan. And speaking of students, Alice, from your perspective, from a student's perspective, because you've studied under the old model and the new model, how does the block work for you?
Well, one thing I can do is I can juggle work, uni, and my sport. So I'm very busy as it is. And going from the old traditional model to the new model, I've been able to have a structured timetable where I have the same class 3 times a week over 4 weeks, instead of having maybe 3 different days starting at 3 different times for so many hours each. So that way I'm able to juggle all my work in between. I don't have to constantly change my rosters around at work. And also just being focused on one subject as well. I've noticed my grades have risen almost by 10% since the traditional model. So it's definitely more focused. I'm able to be more hands-on, apply myself, and then there's lots of lecturer to student contact, and I understand the content more. What's learnt yesterday is usually learnt last week in the traditional model. So I find that I'm just more aware of what's going on and I can apply the concepts directly on the same day instead of having to study, textbooks of theory beforehand.
And that ability to build a rapport with your teacher and with your classmates, because you're seeing the same people day in, day out for that 4-week period, is that helpful with your studies?
Yes, definitely. So I noticed when I did my marketing block, which is part of my commerce degree, I've been able to walk into class and I've known probably 70 to 80% of the people's names in my class, because it's so the interaction so much more than it was in the traditional model. And that way we're learning more friends, especially coming out of high school, going to university. As it is the first year model, it's designed for people to get to know each other. You make friends, there's lots of social events, there's more opportunity to take up clubs, sports, societies and things like that. So it's a lot more sociable, and lots of students have been telling me that they're enjoying it in that aspect. Instead of going into a lecture theatre where there's maybe 200, 300 people in the theatre, you sort of just feel like a number. But now you're going into a class no more than 30 people, you're able to just sit with people and get to know them, and that way you just sort of enjoy the university life more as well.
Thanks, Alice. Alan, you and your colleagues in business, how have you found How have you found teaching under the first year model this year so far? What's it offered you that you haven't perhaps had before?
Yeah, it's a really good question. One of the things about our business units for the last few years is we've been moving towards a seminar style of delivery away from the traditional lecture and tutorial model. Transitioning into the block mode has helped us build on that experience and actually really refine some of those teaching approaches. I think I can speak for all of my colleagues in business. It's been a real pleasure to be able to actually get deeper into those units and work more closely with students. I mean, one of the great things about the block model is within the first week, I'll know everybody's name in the class. It's a first name basis. I can understand where they are with their units of study. I can also understand which bits of the topic they might be really getting straight away and which bits I might need to spend a little bit more time with. And with our 3-hour seminars, you've probably experienced this, Alison. You can have one group who are bounding ahead on a task, but you can also sit down with this group over here and just help them get up to speed as well. So the flexibility within the classroom is an enormous benefit that we didn't have when we just saw students for 3 hours each week over 12 weeks. Now we've got that deeper immersive time where we can actually get to know our students better, understand their needs and help them achieve to their greatest ability.
Thanks, Alan. And part of the first year model experience too, what we're trying to do, I think, is try and give students real world skills and get them studying things that are going to be relevant to them in the workforce. How's that working in first year business?
Yeah, again, we're very lucky, I think, in business in a lot of ways. We have a degree architecture that the way our units are put together that has always been intended from the very beginning to help students get that step into their careers. So we have a clear focus on where students are going, what industry wants from our students, and finding that way of helping our students understand those business needs as well. So that clarity of purpose has been really useful for us. We can then communicate that to students really effectively. We can say, in your industry, this will be the demands. In your industry, these are the skills that will help you be effective and have career success. So that focus and, again, that depth of interaction has allowed us to really hone that message about what's important and take that message from industry, communicate it effectively to students.
And are you finding that in your studies, Alice, under the first year model, that you're finding that it's linking you or pointing you towards where you might go in your career?
Yeah, so definitely. I know my degree is applied finance majored, and that's because I'm doing the law commerce double degree. But I find that all the content I'm learning is very much based on like the real work. So for example, like when I do accounting journals and things like that, it's all very relevant. And my mum's an accountant, and I can go and see her work and I can be like, well, like I've learned exactly what you're doing in class. So then I feel like, oh, it's not a waste. Like it is something I'm going to need in the real workforce. And I'm undertaking an internship for law at the moment at a firm on Collins Street. And like, because it's practical learning and I've got these 3-hour blocks, I've got time to fit in an internship and practical learning in the workplace as well.
So a work-life balance and the ability to do things that are relevant to your course outside of university is important for you as a student?
Definitely. So me juggling work, uni, sport and an internship, having 3 hours a class 3 times a week is really, really flexible, and I can work around it really well.
And would you want to go back to the traditional model?
No, I think I'm happy with the first year model as it is.
And is finishing unit every 4 weeks, getting a grade every 4 weeks, helpful for you in terms of understanding where you are as a student rather than waiting till the end of semester to find out where you are?
Yeah, so after I finished my first block, I was shocked to get my result like literally a long weekend afterwards. And I sort of, had everything put together. I knew exactly what my score was. I knew exactly what my grade was. Instead of having a traditional method, you're waiting almost like a month and a half after the final exam is done to get your results. So now I know, I can work forward or what I need to work on for my next block. So there's a lot more feedback given, and it's easier for students to do better in that way.
Alan, just to pick up on what Alice said there, that idea of building a close rapport between the teacher and the student, I think does that allow both parties to know exactly where a student is within a block, so there are no real surprises?
Yeah, students know the direction they're going. There isn't an end of semester exam that might be the tripping point for them. We're seeing assessment grades coming in at regular intervals. We're monitoring that student progress, not obtrusively, but we're actually seeing what's going on. So we can actually step in and help a student improve a grade on the next assessment task. We're seeing those grades accumulate towards the end of the block, and students can actually work out pretty much if they're passing or not. So the transparency of the system in terms of learning outcomes, progression towards successful completion of a unit of study, I think is a really powerful aspect of the blocks.
And Alice, what are your friends saying about studying at VU this year?
For the first year model, for feedback for first year model has all been pretty positive for me. Some students, you know, they're going from high school where you are juggling 5-6 subjects in VCE and then jumping into the first year model where you're just focusing on the one. They think, oh, it's a great idea, we should have done this in high school, because, you know, we've been juggling like intense subjects for the entire semester or year even during high school, and then jumping into this, you just sort of like, yeah, I can focus on the one subject. I can really try my best to do as well as possible. You know exactly how much weighting is each assessment. And then when you know that, you know exactly what you need to work harder for and what requires a bit more, you know, studying compared to another assessment, for example. So it's really like well structured. And I just think that the feedback has been all positive so far.
Great. And Alan, what are you hearing from the students?
Actually, it's a great feedback that we're getting from the students. Look, I don't think blocks are magical. I think it's just really good educational common sense. We've taken the best of what we've done traditionally, we've polished it brightly, and we're delivering it in a way that makes it more accessible to students. Yeah, it's innovative. Yes, it's a first in Australia, but like a lot of innovative ideas and a lot of firsts, when you look back where it's come from, it's, of course, that's just common sense. You know, we've just taken that common sense approach to student success, come up with a system that will help students achieve in a way that they know where they're tracking without the mystery of an exam or the month of waiting after their final assessment task is completed before they get a grade. Give them quick and timely and constructive feedback. It's a no-brainer.
And we talk a lot about, in the first year model and at universities in general, we talk a lot about transitions pedagogy. Now, for the viewers at home who may not be familiar with transitions pedagogy, tell us a little bit about that, Alan, and how it underpins what we're doing in the first year model.
Transition pedagogy is this idea that when students are moving from a high school environment, such as one you experienced, into a university environment, there's a great deal of change that they're encountering, and the change can be overwhelming. What our transition pedagogy, the literature behind it, has been telling us for a number of years is that we can reduce that stress, that anxiety with students by giving them a lot of support, a lot of guidance in terms of the curriculum being explicit, assessment tasks being clearly explained to them, lots of support to help them be successful. Now, taking all of those ideas that have been in the literature for quite some time now and condensing them down into two key ideas that gave us the first year model. So the first idea was the first year college. A college which was dedicated to that transition of students moving from high school into university. Building on that idea of a first year college was the blocks. And the blocks came to us from a number of areas. We've seen it being done in Colorado in the United States. We've been seeing it done in British Columbia in Canada. And we're seeing it done in Sweden and other parts of Scandinavia. So we've had this global view of what is best practice in education, what's the best practice in student success as they move from high school to university. We've brought it together into this unique Victoria University model of blocks, and we've taken the best of the literature and tried to make it the best practice at Victoria University.
Talking about success and best practice, Alice, what's success for you as a student? What do you want from the university, and what do you want when you leave university?
So my degree is 5 years long, so I want to be continuously enjoying the degree. So that's one thing. So having a hands-on block first year model, you're constantly learning different aspects of a different unit. So it's not, you know, always during the traditional method, you might get bored for 2-3 weeks, you're learning the same sort of theory. Whereas in the first year model, you move on to your next week and you're doing a completely different thing as you were to last week. Also just getting better grades. So being able to be structured in your block. So you've got like 3 hours a day, 3 times a week, and then you've got the assignments which you know prior to the block that are due and what the weighting is. So you're very, very much more capable to make yourself more successful by determining what needs more study compared to the other assessments.
Okay, and talking of success and of this new model, one of the things we haven't mentioned very much yet is the fact that the classes are 3 hours long. There are no lectures. They're run on a more seminar interactive basis. How are they working for you, Alan, as an educator?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, with a lot of the business units in first year, we've been doing this progressively over the last few years, moving towards that seminar style. It's really helped us focus that process, and the time that we were sitting there with the design of the blocks coming up to the beginning of this year, we had that opportunity to really polish the way we do that with those 3-hour seminars. It's an interesting point you make about balancing sport and internship and study. One of the groups of students who are also in transition are mature age students. And we've had a number of mature age students this first semester of the block system who have actually said they found it easier to balance their work commitments and their study commitments. And they found it a lot easier than the traditional part-time student study. So they're getting day release from their employer, coming in and doing 3 hours and then going back to work in the afternoon. They're finding it a great system.
And Alice, do you miss lectures?
Not really.
How is it different studying under the first year model as opposed to studying under a traditional lecture system?
Well, one thing that really stands out for me is because I'm doing a double degree, I used to be tied up between 2 disciplines completely during a traditional method. So I'd be doing maybe 2 commerce and 2 law subjects, and they're completely different, don't relate to each other in any way or any form. But now I'm just focusing on the one discipline at a time. So I don't find myself having to apply myself differently and set myself in different ways for different units as compared to the traditional method. So I just definitely think for double degrees, it's just much more beneficial.
Okay, thanks, Alice. Alan, I wanted to ask you, so what do you actually study in business in first year at VU? What are the actual concepts, the ideas, the subjects you'll be dealing with?
So I should have prepped for this question. There are 8 units of study that make up the Bachelor of Business first year. And this is what we talk about when we talk about our course architecture. We've got 8 first year units, 8 specialisation units, and 8 that can be taken as 2 minors or a second major. And in our first year, we have a suite of what you might call foundation business studies. So we start with Integrated Business Challenge, which is a unit which is focused on a lot of what we might have called soft skills in the past: problem solving, decision making, critical thinking, group working. We have accounting, of course. We have economics, business statistics. We have business information systems, introduction to marketing. We have management and organisation behaviour, business law, and I'm sure I'm missing one. But a full suite of these business units. The suite of units that we have in our first year are not dissimilar from those which are offered by most business courses across Australia. The core units can be found in most other universities, derived from what was once called the Australian Council of Business Deans literature, saying this is best practice. It's a suite of 8 units which helps our students understand if they've chosen the right degree, which is one of the interesting things, where students might commence saying, I'm going to be an accountant. They're going to do our 8 first year units. They get to a unit such as, say, Introduction to Marketing, and they go, wow, marketing, that's really opened my eyes to marketing. I thought I wanted to be an accountant, but now I really want to get into marketing. They can actually change their major at the end of first year. So there's a huge amount of flexibility. Challenge, of course, for somebody like yourself doing a double degree is you are somewhat locked in, but you still have that flexibility after those first 8. You still have that opportunity to change. So the 8 units of study that make up our first year fit neatly into our blocks as well. So we've got 8 blocks in our first year, and they sequence together very nicely. All of the degrees have a starting unit, a touch-on unit. And for the Bachelor of Business degree, the touch-on unit for us is Integrated Business Challenge. Unlike a lot of the other degrees, we've also tried to design in a touch-off unit, one at the end, which is a reflection of all of the units, integrative, and tries to reflect back on that experience, and that's management and organisation behaviour now. It's looking back at the experience of the first year, but it's also looking forward to what's second year going to be like, and is this your specialisation? Who's your specialisation coordinator going to be? Who's going to be in the senior college?
Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Alice. So thank you both for being part of our business Facebook Live session tonight. That was very informative. For more information, please feel free to jump online and chat to our friendly staff, or book a face-to-face consultation. There'll be a link pinned to our comment section after this. And for those wishing to find out more about VU's revolutionary first-year model, there'll be a video also pinned to our Facebook page. And coming up next at 6 p.m, we'll be talking about law courses within the VU first-year model. Thank you very much. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Alice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alice.